Yeah, we back. Now today's going to be a quick video. We're going to be talking about an interesting topic that has also been flying under the radar. Now, of course, on my channel, we've been talking about the ongoing dispute between the military government in Niger as well as the French government in the energy sector, particularly in regards to uranium. As we know, France recently, last year, lost access to the uranium in Africa, right? Uranium that they were getting for free, essentially, because they paid for the uranium with the CFA franc currency, a currency that they could just print at will and then get free resources in exchange. But of course, as we know, the free ride is over. Take a look up on the screen, right? From last year, French nuclear firm Orano says that Niger has taken control of the uranium mines, right? French nuclear company Orano reported a net loss of 133 million euros in the first half of 2024, largely attributed to the losses and asset impairments related to its troubled operations in Niger. The loss was driven by the military government's actions, which included revoking the mining permits and blocking the uranium exports. Now, of course, as we know, after hemorrhaging and losing hundreds of millions of dollars, the French government themselves had to step in and save the company. If you remember, French uranium group Orano received $300 million euro injection from the state, from the French government, right? Now, as we already know, the French economy, as we discussed before, is currently in full-scale collapse, right? Y'all know I come from a medical family, so I like to use medical analogies, right? The French government, if it were a medical patient coming into the hospital, the French government essentially is an elderly patient suffering from various issues, from chronic heart disease, right? The arteries are clogged with debt. The blood pressure is through the roof and the chronic stress is making the heart disease even worse. And as we already know, the finance minister last week said that there's a possibility that the government might need to go to the IMF for a bailout, right? Which means that they might have to go to the intensive care unit and be hooked up to the machines, right? So it's looking very bad right now for the French government. Not only they might have to go to the IMF for a bailout, they're also looking to get a bailout from the American taxpayer, from the United States taxpayer, right? Take a look up on the screen. Orano, that's the French uranium company. Orano is looking to build a multi-billion-dollar uranium enrichment plant in Tennessee. Now, why are they going all the way to Tennessee? Why are they going to the deep south to establish a uranium facility in the United States? Why don't they just build it in Paris? Why don't they just build it at home, right? Here's the thing. They could easily build it in France, but like we said before, the French economy is currently in the dumpster. It's currently crashing and burning. So the United States Department of Energy currently has a multi-billion-dollar fund to essentially build America's uranium nuclear capacity. And the French government wants to tap into those resources. That way, they don't have to fit the bill themselves. The U.S. taxpayer, the American taxpayer, will bail them out and fit the bill so the burden doesn't fall on their shoulders 100%. Because like we said before, they don't have the capacity to stand on their own 2 feet as men. They have to find somebody to leech off of. If it's not the black man, it's the IMF. If it's not the IMF, it's the American citizen, the American taxpayer. They have to find someone to stand on their back. These men cannot stand on their own 2 feet. These men are incompetent. Take a look up on the screen. Orano opens an office in Oak Ridge, Tennessee to support developing its American uranium enrichment facility. The Trump administration has identified growth in the nuclear energy industry as a critical component of the president's campaign to establish American energy dominance and meet the rapidly increasing need for power. The consistent backing of the White House, coupled with record-breaking investment in nuclear technology from the private sector, has vaulted enthusiasm for nuclear power in recent months. In response to calls for reform, President Trump recently issued 4 executive orders designed to bolster domestic nuclear energy development and supply chains and accelerate regulatory timelines for nuclear technology licensing. Orano has been selected by the United States Department of Energy in an award announced yesterday as a supplier of low-enriched uranium generated by new domestic sources. The Department of Energy selected 6 companies from which it can sign contracts to procure low-enriched uranium to incentivize the build-out of new uranium production capacity in the United States. Orano's Niger subsidiaries were removed from the company's consolidated financial statements from the 1st of December. The company formally recognized the loss of operational control of Somer, the operator of the Arlit uranium mine, on the 4th of December. In the company's annual results call on the 19th of January, the company intends to defend its rights in Niger. He said the company had made several attempts to reach an amicable solution with the Nigerian government, which also withdrew Orano's mining license for the Imuraran project before launching the arbitration proceedings that are now ongoing. A third arbitration proceeding over material on the site may also be launched. Now, as you can see, right, the French government's scrambling, right? They got to go all the way to Tennessee, right? Because they know if they built it at home, they would have to fit the bill entirely themselves, right? The burden would fall entirely on themselves. But by sending this overseas to the United States, that way they can tap into government contracts, government resources, and the U.S. taxpayer, instead, they fit the bill for the project instead of the French government having to take the burden on themselves currently at a time where they currently cannot take it. They currently cannot do it. Now, in exchange for footing the bill of this billion-dollar project, the U.S. taxpayer, the American citizen, they get about like 300 jobs, right? So a few hundred jobs are created, and the French government gets billions of dollars of access to government contracts and taxpayer money. Now, the reason why the United States and France are coming together on this partnership is because I believe they want to free themselves from being so dependent upon Russian energy, right? Becoming a little more self-sufficient instead of being so dependent on Russia. So it's kind of mutually beneficial. The French government gets access to billions of dollars in funding, and the U.S. government is less dependent on Russia, and the domestic capacity is boosted. Now, here's the thing. The United States itself and France itself, they don't have an abundant supply of uranium at their disposal, right? So typically, they'll be relying on, the African uranium from West Africa. But unfortunately for them, we cut off the tap, we cut off the access, we kick both of them out the country, the French government and the United States government, right? The French uranium multinationals were kicked out of Niger, and the U.S. military was kicked out of Niger. So no more African uranium for them. So now they're going to have to go to other sources, probably Canada, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, whoever got the uranium, but they're going to have to pay the market price. They're going to have to pay the market rate. So which means that it's not going to be a free ride, no more free lunch, like we said before. I will say this, though. This is an example of what you could call pan-Europeanism, right? Where you have two nations, France and the United States. You have France currently going through economic turmoil and hardship. They are able to go to another Western power, the United States, and tap into those resources and establish partnerships and cooperation that they can mutually benefit from. And when I talk about Pan-Africanism, that's essentially what I'm talking about. Economic cooperation, security cooperation, et cetera, et cetera. As you can see, both the United States as well as France, both of them economically cooperating, both of them sharing the burden so they can mutually benefit and advance their interests. Same thing we can do. And those of us who are intelligent, we understand that. And those of us who are not intelligent, they can't see that. As you can see, when one of them stumbles, when one of them falls down, they can rely on their brother to help them get back up. Right? So instead of France laying down and dying, they can turn to the United States, tap into those resources, shift the cost to the American taxpayer, and still maintain their collective survival. The American government isn't sitting around looking at France struggling and saying, well, that's their problem over there. That's their issue, right? I'm focusing on myself. No, as you can see, as they have always done since the days of the American Revolutionary War, the French government and the American government standing side by side, hand in hand. We can easily do the same thing. So in that aspect, I can tip my hat to my adversaries for them working together for their collective survival. And we should do the same thing. Now, here's the thing, like I said before, due to the fact that Africa, the continent, has been doing welfare for these nations for so long, once you cut off the welfare, that burden has to be shifted somewhere else. As Africa begins to assert its sovereignty, that burden is going to be shifted more onto the citizens of these countries, the American citizen, the French citizen, the British citizen, right? That burden is going to have to be passed on to them, which means, higher taxes, higher energy bills, a rise in inflation. So now the American citizen is going to have to pay the bill for the French multinational, and the French citizen is going to have to deal with the rising cost of energy and things like that, and the rising cost of living and unemployment and inflation. So now the European citizens and the American citizens will have to carry their own weight. Right? The era of free lunch is coming to an end. And we're going to see more and more of this as more African nations begin to assert their sovereignty. Life is going to become harder for citizens living in the West, right? You're going to have to pay out of pocket. When you go to the pharmacy and it's not covered by the insurance, you got to pay out of pocket. Yeah, you got to pay out of pocket because it's no more welfare coming from the continent. No more insurance. It's not covered by the insurance. So you have to pay out of pocket now. That's the reality, right? It is what it is. Now, anyways, man, it's your boy Neferkari, that's Salim, back in the building. Yes, indeed. Second single off the next project, The Spy and Bomber Code. Pin comment at the top, link in the description. Check it out, and I'm gone. Peace.
Oh, France is getting ready to collapse? And nobody's talking about this. And this is not me just fear-mongering. No, look. Fears of French collapse. Sound the alarms. French stock slides as Paris government faces risk of collapse. Timestamp there. France may need an International Monetary Fund bailout. Reuters, French stocks, bonds tumble as government faces potential collapse. Market Watch talking about the collapse. So what exactly went wrong in France and what's going to happen next? We can see that the public debt hovers around 3.3 trillion euros, which is around 113% gross domestic product, which is the highest in recent history. The budget deficit also remains stubbornly high, projected at 5.4% of GDP in 2025, with warning signs of persistent weak fiscal discipline pushing it closer to 6% without significant intervention. Now, keep in mind, their goal for their budget deficit is 3%. They're double that, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get down to that 3% anytime soon. So they need an influx of cash desperately, and they may have to turn to the International Monetary Fund to help bail them out. Because once news got out about how bad it really is financially in France, investors immediately started selling off in the stock market and selling their bonds off too. Now, it's important to note that France is the second biggest economy in the European Union. So the fact that they're collapsing means this is going to send shockwaves through the entire European Union. So France really has to do something fast because this is not good for the EU at all. So what options does France really have right now? The first and most important thing that they absolutely have to do is create their own version of what the United States created in Doge. They've already stated that they're spending way too much money and they need to cut back on that wasteful spending. So creating a version of Doge will help cut in to that debt to GDP ratio that's been devastating for them. Next, and as sad as this may be, they may have to take this bailout from the IMF. Obviously, it's not ideal, but in order to keep the country going, you may have to do something like this, but time will tell if they actually do. The last thing they have to do is a confidence vote. Since all of this is happening, they have to decide if the current leader in France is fit to actually lead the country out of the current situation it's in. If the rest of the countries in the EU decide, no, he's not fit for the bill, he's going to get voted out and they're going to put somebody new in that can help with this problem. So France is on the risk of collapse, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with all of this.
Feel like it's me, I feel like I'm Saudi or ran up on Yan in the middle of Bamako. Enemy line, they claiming they innocent. Don't do no talking, I gotta move militant. Don't do no talking, I hit them with facts. 1804, bringing it back. 1804 like I'm Mother Cap Henry. King with the vision, the crown never empty. Top of the mountain, my soldiers defend me. Ducking and dodging the foreign intelligence. Hitting my desk on the DGSE. Dodging they traps, still on my feet. Feeling impeccable, feel like I'm shining. Go to my neck and I'm flooded with diamonds. Go to my neck and I feel like a mess. Feel like a lion, I'm in a savannah. Feel like the king when I'm up in the jungle. Never defeated, I never been humble. Come out victorious every encounter. Money machine give me help when I count it. Money machine stack it up in a beat. Heart of a king and I ride for the team. Weight of the world got it stuck on my shoulders. Bet you can feel it, my heart getting colder. Yeah, gotta stay focused so when it's in shots I gotta react. Cause I'm a target, I'm under attack. Grabbing a weapon, I tell her get back. Mission exposed, secrets unfold. Enemy try but I'm still in control. Got your boy sitting in Bamako prison. Hoping they wish we sending them home. Enemy know that we good under pressure. Been through the thunderous turbulent storm. Shorty a diamond, I told her she precious. Hop in a whip and I'm taking her home. Hop in a whip and I'm swerving, I'm smashed. Killing my enemies, one of my passion. Rocking this gold like we in bikini. Feel like the captain, I'm clutching a heater. Yeah, gotta stay focused so when it's in shots I gotta react. Cause I'm a target, I'm under attack. Grabbing a weapon, I tell her get back. Mission exposed, secrets unfold. Enemy try but I'm still in control. Got your boy sitting in Bamako prison. Hoping they wish we sending them home. Enemy know that we good under pressure. Been through the thunderous turbulent storm. Shorty a diamond, I told her she precious. Hop in a whip and I'm taking her home. Hop in a whip and I'm swerving, I'm smashed. Killing my enemies, one of my passion. Rocking this gold like we in bikini. Feel like the captain, I'm clutching a heater.